Hello and welcome to another episode of Autogefühl with me, AJ. The Mazda 2 has been around since 1996 in some form or another and with some name or another. And right now, the current generation has been around since 2014. But now, for 2017, there's a new facelift. I know what you're thinking. Doesn't look too different up front, or on the back, or on the side. But trust me, there's a lot more going on underneath. So let's find out what it's really all about. Are you interested? Come on. Let's go. The 2017 Mazda 2 doesn't look really different at all from the previous generation, or rather the current generation, since this is just a mid-cycle facelift. So the Mazda 2 has the Kodo design language of Mazda. So very curvy. It's not as edgy as some of the other Japanese manufacturers, like the recent Honda Civic or the Toyota CHR. I think it's a lot more subtle, a lot more subdued, maybe even a more European, perhaps. The new Mazda 2 with the facelift also gets the optional LED adaptive headlights, like the ones we have here. Although it might be a bit tricky to see that because of the lens in the front. They are LED and they do adapt depending on your driving conditions. A very sharp, snouty front nose with the Mazda logo in the middle of the grille, and a nice splitter in the front and some fog lamps on the side as well. The front of the Mazda 2 has a larger overhang as compared to the overhang at the back. We have 16-inch alloy wheels and with disc brakes in the front, and as we continue down the side, a very curvy, sloping roofline as well as some nice design lines over here. The Mazda 2 is 1.7 meters wide, that's about 5 feet 6 inches. It's about 4 meters long, that's about 13 feet. And finally, towards the rear, a nice, smooth, sloping roof line. And if you notice, the rear brakes in this car are drum brakes and not disc brakes. The rear is accentuated by this one design line which swoops in from the side, goes over these wraparound tail lamps, and goes through the center of the car and towards the other side. Now, although this car is fairly narrow, I think this design element over here kind of emphasizes the width of the car. Over here in the middle, we have the Mazda logo and the Mazda 2 badging on the left-hand side. And towards the right, you will see the SkyActiv technology badging. We will talk more about this in detail when I'm driving. The latch to release the hood, the trunk, is over here. And you also have the sensors for the parking in the back. And the lower part of the bumper is black, and there is only one tailpipe on the side. Which, honestly, I prefer this rather than having fake exhausts. What do you think? Put your comments down below. Here we have the key. This does not have the optional keyless entry, so you have an emergency key on the side. But otherwise you just have to use this to unlock the door. But we do have push button start, which I'll show you once we hop inside. So the front door opens fairly wide. There's hard plastics up here, but down here you have some nice padded fabric material. Down here as well there's some padded soft touch materials. I don't know what to call this. It doesn't look like carbon fiber. It just has some kind of an interesting texture and a different finish. It's quite nice. It's also present in the middle of the dashboard. There is another special textured element. Perhaps this looks kind of like carbon fiber effect, I would say. Here, mirror adjustments. A fairly small door bin, but just about large enough to hold a small water bottle. As we look inside, I think the interior is very much the same as the rest of the Mazda range. Very refined, but still a little bit more interesting than perhaps some of the other rivals in this class. Let's hop inside and let's take a closer look. Getting inside is fairly okay, because the car is slightly lower and because the body's not necessarily a tall body, you have to kind of stoop in a little bit to hop inside. You don't need the key anymore since we have the push button start, so you can put it away. Finding a comfortable seating position is also really easy. The seat can be adjusted for height, up as well as down. The seat back can be reclined as well, obviously, and the seat can also be slid forwards and backwards. Furthermore, the steering wheel column also has full adjustment for height and reach, like this. And overall, it's fairly easy to get a comfortable seating position. Here we are sitting inside the Mazda 2. So let's start looking at it from the left. On the left-hand side, beside the steering wheel, we have the buttons to turn off the stability program, as well as the traction control, and the lane keep assist, and the automatic start-stop function. And then we have the dashboard. So this has these two wing-like elements on the left and right, and a large speedometer in the middle. So this is, I think, looks fairly sporty. However, the screens on either side do not change as such. They don't, like for example, they don't show you any navigation instructions. You can skip through them, as you can see, to view the different sub-menus in the trip and the mileage indicator. But anyway, on the left-hand side, we have a digital tachometer. That's right. So as you can see, if I rev the engine, there is a digital readout instead of an analog tachometer. And I guess that's okay. It looks pretty cool. It's something different. And up here, there's a button to reset the trip if you want. The steering wheel is all new for the facelift Mazda 2 in the 2017 version. There are some buttons on the left-hand side for the audio controls and the voice activation, as well as telephone controls, track skipping, and the button to switch between the different sub-menus, like I just showed you. And on the right side of the steering wheel, we have the button to change the mode of the cruise control to either a cruise control or a speed limiter. This is not adaptive cruise control. So even though this car has emergency city braking, which is a emergency braking assist in low city speeds, it is a camera-based system, and hence this does not translate into a adaptive cruise control. Apart from that, well, there are the stalks for the headlights on the left as well as the wipers on the right. The steering wheel has a fairly decent grip and it's fairly small, so I think it's quite fun. And the design also, I do enjoy the circular horn in the middle. And overall, yeah, I like it. Let me know, what do you guys think? The infotainment system has a screen which looks like it would retract, but it doesn't. It's fixed. But I think this is a good way of doing it. Some people like it, some people don't. But when you're stopped, you can access the menus via your as a touchscreen. It works this way, but when you're driving, you have to operate it with the toggle switch down here, which I'll show you guys later on. But on the first left-hand side, we have applications. So you have a fuel economy monitor, gives you your average fuel consumption and things like that. And then your entertainment, so you have radio, auxiliary, USB, and the usual, and CD-ROM, etc. You can connect your phone. There is no Android Auto or Apple CarPlay at the moment. I asked Mazda when it would be available because none of the Mazda cars have Android Auto or Apple CarPlay as of yet. They say they cannot tell us for sure, but they're definitely working on it. So hopefully in the near future we will be able to see it on the Mazda cars. But right here, right now, we don't have that. So there are some more phone-related settings on this menu. The navigation is fairly swift, fairly smooth, fairly easy to understand. It doesn't have pop-up images when you have to take exit. It's fairly smart, so it zooms in when you're going around a roundabout, and it's very adaptive in the way it operates. And I do wish that the navigation would either be displayed on the dashboard, but since you have the option of getting a heads-up display, which by the way has been improved from the previous version, which is now full color and has much better resolution. Unfortunately, our test car does not have the heads-up display, so I can't show it to you, but I would definitely recommend that you guys spend that little bit extra and get that heads-up display. And finally, there are some settings. As usual, some display-related settings. And we have a lot of safety features like blind spot monitoring, lane departure warning, parking sensors, which works when you put the car in reverse, like so. Apart from that, there are also tiredness assist. So there's a lot more safety features now in the new Mazda 2 facelift. Some sound controls for your bass, treble, fade, balance, etc. Clock and devices, and a system menu. So it's not overly complicated. You just have 5 buttons in the middle. But I think, you know, if something as simple as this, anybody can get used to it really quickly, and that's the plus point. Here you have the 5-speed manual gearbox. There's also a 6-speed manual, as well as a 6-speed torque converter auto box. Down here, there's the manual handbrake. And this is the system which you will use the switch to control the infotainment system while you're driving, because then you cannot use it as a touchscreen. So this is a very nice system to use. It makes a nice clicking sound. And you can go left, right, select, and up and down, things like that. There are some hotkey buttons around the sides for your music, home, navigation, back, and volume. So very easy to use once you get the hang of it. A couple beverage holders over here and a couple small cubby holes as well. I really like how the air vents are positioned around the cabin. So on the outside you have the circular air vents, but the one in the middle is also really nice because it kind of is flush with the center of the dashboard. Even this little trim, this silver gray trim, continues through the air vent, and then it only, when you move it up and down, you realize that, hey, there's an air vent tucked away inside. And this interesting textured plastic also breaks the monotony of this cabin, and I think is a nice detail. And finally, there is a glove box. It's not damped, but at least it's fairly large, and you can easily put, you know, your service manual and things like that inside it. So here we can see the buttons for the seat heaters. And down here are the climate control. This is the single zone climate control that we have here. Very large rotary dials, so it's easy to use while on the move. Down here you have the CD player, as well as slots for the SD card down here, a couple USB ports, an auxiliary, and a 12-volt power socket. Even though this car looks like a little red chili thanks to it being so small and red, it's not only hot and spicy, it's also incredibly hot temperature-wise on this really hot sunny day, so I hope I don't cook myself when I hop inside. But the rear door opens fairly wide, not as wide as the front door, but that's expected. Most cars in the rear are always like this. And the opening is fairly decent, although the wheel arch at the rear slightly obstructs the entry into the car. Yeah, it's a little bit of a obstruction, but it's not too bad. Sitting inside, well, this is a small car, and in this segment, you cannot really expect to have such a large rear seat. Only the new Ibiza is a little bit better, but that follows a different philosophy. It's meant to be a big car. This is not meant to be really a big car. So the seat is set to my driving position. I'm 5'8" or 1.7 meters. Knee room is just about enough to get by. Headroom is a lot more plentiful there, so that's better. The seat back is a little bit upright for my liking, but then it just depends on your taste. And again, in this segment, usually there are no rear aircon vents, so the Mazda 2 also doesn't have any rear air conditioning vents, nor is there a 12-volt power socket or a USB socket. And there is also no armrest. But again, for a small car, you know, this is more for a two-seater plus two small children in the back. And for that, there are ISOFIX points as well. A small pouch for the rear seat back to maybe keep some things. But definitely maximum 2 adults here at the back. Let's open the hatch and check out the size of the trunk. So the space, as it is with the seats up, is about 280 liters. But of course, you can increase that. The floor, as you can see, is really low. There's a very large loading lip, which I think is quite unfortunate. And again, the plastics in this area are not the greatest. Here you can either have a spare wheel, or in this case, just a tire repair kit and some emergency stuff. Nothing below that. Then we can remove the parcel shelf. Yeah. It's always a bit tricky with one hand, but there you go. And the material of this parcel shelf also it's okay. But I think I've seen better in this segment. But let's put it away for now. As you can see, the seats can fold in a 60-40 fashion. There are switches on the side, which will tumble them forward. But there is a lip over here, and it doesn't lay completely flat. So it's not the best to carry large items, but on the bright side, there is a small light on the side and some tethering points on the other side. Now let's take a look under the hood. If I can find the latch. There we go. So first things first, the Mazda 2 starts at just under 13,000 euros, but the test car that we have here is around 19,000 euros. And if you get the top trim, then you're looking at something over 21,000 euros. So the Mazda 2 comes with a range of 1.5 liter 4-cylinder petrol engines, naturally aspirated, or even a 1.5 diesel engine. The petrol engines are a 75 horsepower, a 90 horsepower, and a 115 horsepower engine, while the diesel is 105. They come with either 5 or 6-speed manual, or even a 6-speed automatic, which is available in the 90 horsepower version. The 115 horsepower variant of the petrol engine also gets something called as an IE loop, which is a regenerative system. So during braking, it generates some electricity, which is stored and used not to power the wheels, but just to power the lights and the music and some other accessory systems. And finally, all versions are only front-wheel drive. We just wanted to show you guys another variant in a different color. We just found this other test car sitting around, so we thought we'd just take a quick sneak peek at it. This is the Kizoku Intense trim level, the very top trim with the 115 horsepower engine. This also has the heads-up display that I was talking about. And as you can see, that little piece of plexiglass flips up. So it's not really a full heads-up display. It doesn't project the display onto the windshield, but rather onto that screen. And if you come over here, you can also see that this car has the leather and fake suede or Alcantara-ish type material in the middle. And on the interior as well, you can see that the dashboard has that brown fake leather inlay rather than the textured technical plastic that we have in our test car. So what do you guys prefer? Which one is better? While driving a Mazda, there are two words that you have to remember. The first is Jinba Itai, and the second is Skyactiv Technology. So Jinba Itai is Japanese for horse and rider as one. So this is the philosophy that Mazda tries to follow with its cars, where they try to make the car responsive and more in tune with the driver. In fact, they try to make it seem like the car is an extension of your body. And the way they achieve this is through the second word that I said, that is Skyactiv Technology. So Skyactiv Technology is the term which is used to describe all the different elements that are in the car, which are tied together and connected together, and they work together to improve the driving dynamics, the efficiency of the engine, as well as comfort. So this includes several things. For example, the chassis. The chassis is a little bit stiff, it is a little bit lighter, and there's also a lot more sound deadening in just the right places so that it's a lot more quieter and calmer and much more relaxing to drive on long distances. Then, in terms of the engine, the Skyactiv engines are generally 4 cylinders and they are not turbocharged, they're naturally aspirated. And in order to increase the efficiency and the power, the Mazda Skyactiv engines have high compression ratios. Generally, we see in most car manufacturers what they do is they downsize the engine, lop off a cylinder, make it a 3-cylinder engine and put a turbocharger. Well, that's one way of doing it. But as we discussed when I was driving the Ibiza a few weeks ago, turbochargers have some drawbacks. Like, for example, at low RPMs, there's turbo lag because there isn't enough boost. And at high RPM, there's too much pressure and that leads to knocking and just choking the engine. So Mazda instead employs a higher compression ratio. And they achieve this with some really precision engineering, which I don't want to get into right now. Maybe we can talk about that at a different time. But it seems to be working quite well. And the other problem, which is very common for high compression, is, like I said, is knocking. And to get around this problem, what Mazda has done is in their exhaust manifold, the piping is a lot more complex and a lot longer. So this isolates the subsequent exhaust pulses coming from the cylinders, and they don't interfere with each other. So overall, this system is supposed to give better mileage. Right now, it says 5.9 liters for 100 kilometers, which is too much. Mazda claims a combined efficiency of about 4.5, but we've just started driving not more than 30 minutes ago, so we'll give it some more time before we judge. Another part of the Skyactiv Technology is the steering. Now, of course, this is an electric-powered steering like every car, and that's obviously again to aid the efficiency. But Mazda has designed the steering geometry with, keeping in mind that it's going to be electric powered. And to improve the feedback, what they've done is set the caster angle a little bit higher than usual. And because the electric powered steering is a lot more flexible, the program they have written for the assistance curve is really in tune with the kind of caster angle that they have employed. So overall, there is, I could say, a little bit better feedback. I don't think it's making such a big difference. And another important thing, which is new to the Mazda 2 now, is G vector control, or GVC. Basically, this is not brake-based torque vectoring like we've known before from other car manufacturers like the Nissan Micra or Ford, where brake-based torque vectoring breaks the inside wheels a little bit. So not only are the wheels at an angle when you're steering around a corner, and the differential in the speed obviously that is induced by the steering angle, but there is an extra braking on the inside wheel, so which kind of pulls you towards the apex of a corner. But this system, of course, like you would guess, makes the brake pads wear out a lot more. So what Mazda has done is this, with this G-Vector control, or this GVC, when you're going around a corner, the engine drops its power output a little bit, because the algorithm for the steering wheel and the engine, the control unit, are connected together now. So what that does is, because of the engine braking, when you lose a little bit of power, the inertia and the weight transfer of the car shifts a little bit forward, and because of that there's more grip and more weight on the front wheels, and it's a much more controlled and smoother response in your steering. Do I feel it? Not really, no. I think this is too small of a car. It's already so lightweight. It's just about 1,000 kilograms. I don't think it's making such a big difference. But you know, it's some fancy technology, and overall the net effect is certainly positive, so I'll give it that. Apart from that, talking about driving dynamics, the new the facelift also has better pedal placement. So it's much more comfortable and much more engaging to drive as well. The gearbox, as usual, being a Mazda, is really slick, very mechanical, feels like a nice oiled rifle. It has such nice action to it, and it's always fun to downshift as well. This 1.5 four-cylinder engine that we're driving makes 90 horsepower, and it's a bit underpowered if you want to really push it hard, but because it's a small car and it's pretty lightweight, for most of your most of your conditions when you're driving, I think it would be okay. A little bit more power would have been nice, and if you agree with me on that, then there is also the option for the 115 horsepower engine. Apart from that, let's talk about visibility now. The visibility is okay. It's adequate. I wouldn't say it's fantastic, because the roofline is quite low. You know, the windscreen kind of isn't that big, so because of that, when you're stopped at a traffic light, for example, you kind of have to keep peeping under the rearview mirror to see the light, to see if it's changed from red to green. But side visibility is okay. Rear visibility is also pretty okay as well. It also has a rear windshield wiper, so when it's raining or snowing, that also aids in visibility out the back. So let me see if I can feel that G-vectoring control around these corners. I mean, I think it's more psychological. I think I know because it's there, I'm trying to look for it, and any slight hint of maybe something feels a little bit different, I'm like, okay, it's working. So maybe it's just more, see, I can feel something, or I think I feel something. I don't know if it's really the GVC at work or if it's just my brain which is trying to trick me, but overall it is quite engaging to drive. And Mazda, with their philosophy of horse and rider as one, they pay a lot of attention to that. Again, like I said, the sound deadening has been improved for this facelift version, so it's very quiet, it's very refined. I mean, Mazda cars are generally so refined, and the Mazda 2, even though it's the entry smallest Mazda that there is, it's again very comfortable and very refined. It's quite impressive that way. The steering wheel is a new design steering wheel. It has a good grip. It has leather on the exterior, and there's buttons to navigate the options and the audio on the left and right. And the seat is also fairly comfortable, and it's a little bit firm, I would say. Perhaps for my taste, it's a little bit firm, and it's a little bit narrow, especially for the side bolstering. For a wide guy like me, I think it would have been nicer if it was a little bit wider, but it's not too bad. And this is quite a narrow car overall anyway. I mean, it's not as wide as the new Seat Ibiza, which I drove recently, which I was comparing, earlier. So with that in mind, I guess it's okay. But again, with this facelift, they have improved the interior cabin space, especially in terms of shoulder room at the front. Not exactly sure how they've achieved that, but that's what it says, and that's what they claim. And overall, On country roads like this, the Mazda 2 is quite okay. And certainly in the city, with its smaller dimensions and its nimble handling and its lightweight, it's even more at home in city. The mileage is still reading 5.9, unfortunately, so we'll have to give it some more time to see how that has improved later on. The Mazda 2 also has the option of a heads-up display. Unfortunately, our test car does not have that. I would recommend you spend that little bit extra and do go for it, because the navigation screen is a bit small and it's a little bit, I mean, it's easy to read, but sometimes, you know, I've missed several exits already, so there is no navigation command on the screen, which I think is one of the things that I'm not so happy about, is this dashboard. There isn't enough information on this, and there is no way to change these screens to different things that I want. It's just, you know, what you see is what you get. And that's why I think a heads-up display would definitely be much more useful in that case. The suspension is also fairly compliant. On the highway, when I was driving earlier, I did feel a lot more of the undulations and the changes in the surface a lot more, and you could hear it a little bit, but that's again because it's a smaller car and the wheels are also smaller, so they're more prone to displacement because of any undulations and change in surfaces. There's a lot more safety features. I don't know if you guys heard that, but it also has lane keeping assist, there's blind spot monitoring, there's emergency city braking, so at low speeds in the city, it will detect if there's obstacles in the front that you may have missed, and if you're approaching them way too quickly, then it will brake the car automatically to avoid the collision. There's a rear traffic alert and parking sensors. All these new things are definitely a big welcome change. But yeah, on nice winding country roads like this, here just outside of Munich, I think the Mazda 2 is a fun car. Short update on the mileage. So now we're seeing 5.2. So we've been driving for a little bit further, and we've been basically pretty much on these country roads for quite a while now, for about 50 kilometers, and only about 15 to 20 kilometers on the highway. So I think 5.2 is not too bad. And of course, you can expect better mileage if you drive a little bit more smoothly and with a more gentle foot, not a heavy foot like I am. But another thing which I generally notice, and is something that people don't really keep in mind, is just because you buy a smaller engine doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to be getting good efficiency. Because a smaller engine making less power, you know, to climb up a hill or to overtake cars on the highway, you're going to really mash the throttle, you're going to downshift a lot more, you're going to really rev the engine a lot higher. And because you're revving it so much higher, especially in turbo engines, that leads to a higher fuel consumption. So it doesn't really mean that a smaller, less powerful engine is always more economical. That's why I would still say, even this is 5.2, 5.3, maybe it can go down to 5-ish or 4.8 would be fine, would be great actually. But I would still recommend you go for the more powerful 115 horsepower engine, because you don't need to stress that engine as much. And because this is already a high compression engine, it's already under a lot of stress. So you might as well keep it more relaxed, and the extra power will help you in overtaking. It'll have more torque as well. So yeah, go for the 115 horsepower. So talking about the power and the torque, let's try some roll-on in-gear acceleration tests, shall we? So let's keep it in 4th gear. I'm going to slow it down to 50. Let's try 50 to 100 and see how long it takes in 4th gear. Ready? 3, 2, 1, go. Foot is flat to the floor. As you can see, it's taking quite a long time. We're just crossing 60. Just crossing 70. Just about at 80. So yeah, 90 horsepower, you know, and now we're at 100. So that took quite a long time. So in-gear acceleration in 4th is not that high. Of course, torque is also not that high. And when the engine is revving a little bit higher, you do hear a little bit of the induction noise. So I think it's a fun engine, definitely for in-city use, and if you're going to have small stints on the country roads and small stints on the highways, then certainly it's good. And the compact dimensions also means that it's more nimble and agile. And now that I've been driving a little bit more, I think I do notice that G-vectoring control, coming in a little bit more prominently when I'm pushing the car a little bit harder. I think that's where it's more prominent, not when you're going around gentle curves like this. Earlier I was pushing it a little bit harder. Maybe I can show you if we come into such a road right now. Like this is a steep turn right here. And I can feel much more consistent steering response. I don't need to make adjustments mid-corner. As you can see, it's hold it, keep the lock, and it follows the same line. I haven't changed it at all. So I think it does help a little bit, although I don't feel the body pitching forward like it's supposed to, because the engine is cutting down power a little bit. But anyway, you know what, we'll give it that. It works pretty well. So yeah, overall, the Mazda 2 with the facelift, with its extra safety features, I think is a better package than it was ever before. Now we're on the highway, let's test in-gear acceleration for overtaking in fourth gear from 100 to 130. So let me just wait for the traffic to clear out a little bit. Oops, there we go. And while we're waiting for that, I can also tell you that the mileage has gone down to 4.9 now, so which is a good number. And if you're going to be driving longer on the highway, it'll definitely drop even lower. And another thing which I notice on the highway is because the car is a little bit smaller, it gets upset by crosswinds a little bit more than I would have liked perhaps. So you're working at the wheel a lot more often than you have to. So anyway, let's try the overtake maneuver. If I can go now. Here we go. So there's 100, there's 110, there's 120, and there's 130. So I guess in fourth gear, if you really want to make an overtake, you can. And our exit is here, so I have to get off the highway again. But I would still definitely recommend, if you plan to use this car much more out on the highway and on long distances, to get the bigger engine. I'm here with Mr. Marcus Fry. Him and his family have this beautiful private collection of really unique Mazdas. So he's going to show us some of his favorite cars today. Mr. Marcus, so what do we have here?
Hi, here is a special car. It's a Mazda RZ1. It's a 3-cylinder turbocharger, and it's quite different to other cars. And we get this car straight from Japan. And all the cars here in our museum, they have a special history. But on this car is special that we get from Japan, and the papers, they've been lost, and that we have normally no chance to get it out from Japan. It's not allowed. And then we get the chance to get the car in bits in every. It was complete split, and yeah, and then we get the car and we make it together. And it was the guy who split the car make a good job, and then now it's like it is.
So have you ever actually driven this car on road in Germany?
Yes, we've been driven the car in Germany, but it's not registered. It was not registered, but we have with a company number. Then we make the test drives, and it makes lots fun to drive this car.
So this is a mid-engined, small, very lightweight car, mid-engine and rear-wheel drive, which makes 64 horsepower. But of course, you know, this was in 1992, and 64 horsepower for such a lightweight car, I can imagine it must really feel like a go-kart.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. It's a quite small car, and there's not really heavy, and that makes it so easy to drive and so fast. But just I think this car is a special looking car, and it's not a car for the motorway, you know, but for the city or for town it makes really fun to drive.
And you're also telling me that this has a special body kit which does not come with
Yes,
the
this
normal
body kit-
cars.
Yes, this is a special body kit. It's designed for master speed, and yeah, that makes a lot special. And this is a limited edition.
Awesome. So maybe you can show me one more car.
Of course.
Here we have a very unique Mazda MX-5. At first glance, it I think looks quite regular to the Mark II MX-5, but there's something very special about this. Can you tell us more?
That's right. This is a special edition. They make but just for the Japanese market, they make a factory coupe. It's a really coupe. It's a limited edition, and I think it looks fantastic in the rear. It's a really nice coupe, and they make about over the factory coupes what I know about 500, but all with a limited styling. And this one is the MX-5, the Series A. This must, and on this type is the spoiler kit and the carbon look. They make 200 of this, and this car is the number 9. And I like this car, but we import this car from an auction in Japan, and okay, it was not so nice like it is, but we done it like it is in a good condition. And also, this is a quite nice and fast car. This is a big engine, and I like this car. It's a special car.
So this has 158 horsepower, as I see, and there's a small little, what is this? A small little badge inside, which shows that this is Type A, number 9 out of 200. So only 200 of these cars were ever made in the whole world, and probably, you know, I hope all 200 are still there today in somebody's museum, kept away. I hope, but
I know now this is a collection car. I know also in Japan it's not too easy to get it anymore. It's a small series and limited. It's also special, and the most cars goes to a car collector, like racy persons like us.
that's very cool. I'm so interested that you have such interesting cars. So maybe you can show us this car on the side
this
here.
side.
So
This is also one of my favorite cars, but just this car is also a limited car. Is for a Mazda 60th birthday limited edition, and this is with a rotary car. It's a rotary engine in, and I get this car from an auction in England, and this was also a Mazda collector, and this car, it was on a eBay auction, and I saw it one day in the auction, and I say, oh, Joachim and my father and my brother, we three together say, okay, it's a car for collection. Then we look for the car, and the funny thing was on this car, it was in Newbury. It was in the south, and I worked for a while for Mazda UK, and it was in a Mazda garage in Newbury. And that was so funny. I know the place, and then I want the car. I bought the car, and I leave the car there for a while, and then on a holiday trip I pick it up. It was so funny, and the car was in this condition like it is. It's like new, and I was really pleased to get the car.
fantastic. So if you could get into any of these cars right now and go for a nice spin on this bright summer day, which is the one car you would, without thinking twice, jump into? Do you have such a car?
Yes, of course. The Master Cosmo on the end is a really special car. This car was our first Master collection car, and we bought this in the States when I've been a youngster, when I was really young, and we restored the car for nearly 30 years ago, and that I like this car also very well.
Well, thank you so much for your time,
Okay.
Mr. Fry, and you have a wonderful collection.
Nice to meet you and hope to see you soon.
Definitely.
Bye bye.
Let's summarize today's drive of the Mazda 2 facelift, the 2017 version. Well, with prices starting for the base variant just under 13,000 euros and going up to 22,000 euros or even more, and for example, our test vehicle being around 19,200 euros, I think it's a little bit on the more expensive side. And on the inside as well, it's a little bit cramped if you want to use this car for 4 people once in a while and having luggage in the back. I think you might want to look elsewhere. But what it does have is a very refined engine, very refined interior, and a lot of fun driving dynamics. So I would really tell you guys to consider this car if you're in the market for a small city hatchback. So let us know, what do you think? Put your comments in the section below. And don't forget to subscribe and follow us on Instagram and Facebook. We always upload pictures from the events that we're filming at, as well as some special interesting content and surveys and discussions. So don't forget and don't miss out.